Welcome back. Today I'm working on the Dakota RT. I'm waiting on parts for the Jeep to finish that intake project. It's running and driving and everything. I just need a couple more parts. But while I'm waiting on that, I kind of wanted to knock out a little project. This is the hitch off the Jeep. I was just going to toss it, but for a while I've been thinking about hauling a trailer with this thing. Nothing too big. I mean, I might haul a car with it, which I think it'll do. It's an RT. It's got a 46 RE. It's got the Chrysler 9 1/4. It's got all big truck parts. It just doesn't have the weight of the big truck. So it's the best thing to haul with. No. Am I gonna do it anyway? Yep. Anyway, 2.5-inch tube hitch. It's pretty decent size, I think, for what I need. My plan is to have it, instead of hanging below this, bottoming out in more things, I want it to come out right here. Plan is to cut this out and put this on a spring hinge of sorts, so you just fold this down and then slide your receiver in. It's at least that's where my mind's going at first. Hopefully that all works out. Looking at it under the truck, that's about 7.5 inches front to back. To get that in here to go through this window, if I don't modify this, I'm gonna have to cut this crossmember back a bit, which I'm not worried about it, because when this is all bolted and welded in, it's gonna act as a crossmember, and trimming just a bit of this isn't gonna matter. Ultimately, I may trim more than that when I'm done, just to make up for the weight I've added. I think on the side, I think my plan is to make a slot so that it can slide in, and then I'll make a plate, get bolts all the way around it, and I think I'm also going to weld it to the spring hanger, just for a little extra security. I don't know what the most it'll be able to haul is, but I don't want, if anything, I don't want the hitch to break. This is not that thick, and it looks like the factory one that used to be on here bolted just here and here. I don't see anything any further up, so they didn't spread the load that far. Now I don't know what this one was rated for. I want mine to be able to put whatever I want to put on it without having to worry about it. So anyway, slot this, we can slide it in, and if I ever change trucks I can take this stuff off. This is a drop hanger also, so if I ever get a single cab, or if I wreck this thing and need another one, I can just take my parts off, put it on the new truck. Where if I cut a square hole and slide it in through and then cap the ends, well, now I've got to torch stuff and cut stuff if I ever want to take it off. So this way ensures easy on, easy off. But I'm gonna kind of mock up a way to measure this with the bumper or the roll pan off of it, and then we're gonna take the roll pan off and start cutting. I know we're gonna have to get into this, and that's why I may just take a decent chunk out. Probably for now I just want to attach it to it, and then later on if I want to I can cut it out. Tubes all prepped, ends cut off. I ended up doing a lot of messing around figuring out where this was going to go. I was able to measure from this point down to where the hole was and how far back, and I ended up having a notch just that much out of the cross member, so not a big deal. I've already got the slot here. I don't like that there's not going to be much meat underneath, but by the time I get 2 or 3 bolts up here and weld to this thing, I think it'll be fine. I may make something to bolt back in here and stitch it back in. I don't know. I'm not that worried about it. I would think attaching it to this, grabbing that much frame, it would be fine. So I've got that done. The tube slides in, and I've made these plates. Make it easier to weld to that. And that should do it. By the time I center this thing up, I gave myself a little gap all the way around the tube to weld. I think that's going to work just fine. Like I said, I might put something back in here, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think this being so thin is going to add much strength. Maybe a little extra security, but I think it's fine for now. If I was really too worried about it, I'd just weld it in more places. But I really don't want to be permanent, because eventually I either want to get a single cab truck or another truck. I'll show you something on the front end of this I didn't notice till well after I bought it, and I was taking the engine out. At some point in its life, this thing got wrecked hard. This is where they've welded the front end of another truck onto this truck, and none of the body lines line up, which doesn't really bother me that much, but the whole thing's pretty well tweaked. So that's why one day, if I run across one cheap enough, I may just buy another truck, put all my parts in it. Well, I just had a real dumbass moment. I'm not going to weld it to this. It may eventually get welded to that, but I don't know why. It was right in front of me. I just need to make a piece that bolts to here and weld it to here and call it done. That would be plenty. So 2 bolts here, 2 bolts up here, that'd be fine, and then I don't have to attach it to this. Just got a little too close to it, and now it's been a couple days, and coming back to it, it seems pretty obvious that's what I should have done. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to get it tacked up, drill some holes, because all I've got is a TIG welder at the house. So I'll get it tacked up, drill some holes, get some bolts in it so that I can drive it to work and make it, and when I'm at work I'll make that piece to weld to it and bolt to the bottom, and then that'll be nice and easy. Had I thought enough about it, I probably could have modeled something up in SolidWorks and had it lasered and just bent it at work, and been much easier. I will have to think of how to get it around this. I can get a nut in there, there's just enough room, so that'll be fine. But in order to slide it in, it's going to have to go down, have to slide down, in, and up, or I just cut that brad off. So anyway, that's the plan. No longer going to weld to this for now. I can't believe it was so obvious that's how I should do it. Anyway, I'm going to get this thing measured up and tacked up, put some bolts in it, and then we'll set the roll pan on and start looking at that. Right now, I had it so where the tag was right here. It should clear it just fine. And I've got my my spring hinge and my rubber stoppers to start figuring that out, so figure out how it's going to hinge down and close back. And then, like most things, I started this project without any thought at all. I still got to get a 7-way, and I need a brake controller, because while this thing should pull it, it's got plenty of power. It's the same thing as a 1500 basically, the 46 already, and the 9 1/4 doesn't have the weight or the brakes. So definitely got to have trailer brakes. Now, I think the cool thing about this being an RT, and I don't know if they all had the option, but you can buy the 7-way kit, supposed to plug right into that. So that's easy. And from what I've read and seen, there should be a plug for the brake controller to plug right in under the dash. So that's going to be easy. So I'll probably do that in another video later on when I get those parts in. But for now, we'll get this thing tacked in and bolted up. And I think I'll finish it off at work whenever I get those pieces and weld them on. But ultimately, I'm glad that I sat here and stared at it for a minute. I'm much happier with using that bottom flange than welding it to the spring hanger. I think that would have been fine. It would have worked, but grabbing the bottom flange definitely better and probably safer. Well, let's get to it. Just gonna do one last final check. That should work. Got 2 bolts in each side. I've got it centered this way and front to back is right, so go ahead and tack it in. That'll work for today. That's enough to make the 40-mile trip to work. There's about a million ways I could have done this. I could have cut this up, scooted the tube back so I didn't have to notch so much of the frame. I could have made a whole new one. I could have done a lot of different things, but I just wanted to take the piece off the Jeep and put it on as is, just because it cost as little as possible. So this was free. This didn't cost anything. My time didn't really cost me anything to do this. The expensive part's just going to be the 7-way and the brake controller, which I think less than $100 will be good to go. But let's get to the roll pan, putting it back on or mocking it up, because I've got to figure out how I'm going to mount my spring hinge. So let's take a look at that. Alright, here's what I got. I need the plate to be able to fold down to get the receiver in. So I think I should have ordered the other style spring hinge. This is definitely stronger than I expected it to be, but I think we can make it work. So I think if I mount this here, this flange is kicked up, which doesn't help us that much, but I've got some angle. My plan was to make I knew the tag wouldn't be strong enough to take the force by itself, but to make a small frame, and I got these little snubbers, so the frame will come up and hit that and stop, but this be tight enough that it's not going to rattle. But looking at that and this height doesn't look bad. So I think where I need to get bolted to this and bolted to this, I think I can use some small steel or aluminum angle, and that would be strong enough if I grab it from the bottom. Of course, if I make the mistake of grabbing the top, it's just going to fold the plate over. But I think I can find something else for that after. I could make something that bolts to this with the angle so that it's strong enough to support itself and the tag's just sitting there, not actually holding any load. Because just as tight as this spring is, it hitting these snubbers, I'm sure it's going to bend the tag, which for now I don't care, but for later on, this thing's out of date anyway. Alright, here's what I've come up with. I just welded this to the back of that piece of aluminum angle. Roll pan's back on. I quit recording because the neighbors were mowing and you couldn't hear a damn thing. But anyway, it's got 2 bolts on the sides, 4 bolts across the top. This time I used nut certs instead of rivets, so I don't have to drill the rivets out next time. Once the tag was on here, it really doesn't take much pressure to open this thing. It takes much less than I thought it would. It's not really trying to bend the tag. It's fine. So I think that's going to work just fine. I don't really see any problems. It's not that much further in than if it had the hitch down here. I was thinking about using a trailer and jackknifing easier because it's a little more recessed, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think we'll be fine. That's pretty much going to be it for this video. On the next one, I'll get the 7-way in, I'll get the brake controller in, and I'll get the plates made to bolt to the bottom flange and get that welded up. I was doing this while waiting on parts for the Jeep. Parts for the Jeep are in, so I want to get back onto it. There's going to be at least one more video, maybe 2. I'll split it up. I want to get this thing able to haul a trailer so I can haul the Jeep and the 240 and whatever else I need to haul. So it's lowered, it hits the frame already with no weight. It's going to need some kind of assistance, like I don't know if I'm going to do an airbag kit just for when I'm using the trailer or whatever I'm going to do. I know I need to C-notch the frame just a little bit. I don't want to do a big notch and weaken it too much. I think I've got about 1 inch of clearance now, so if I notched it 1 inch, 1.25 inches, I think that would be fine. So I haven't quite decided on airbags or what I'm going to do yet, but as we go down the road we'll figure it out. I had this crazy idea of a cantilever thing because it's lower truck and I want to be able to put the biggest tires I can on it, and I don't want to have to take things off and on when I'm going to haul anything. So I thought about doing a cantilever system with an airbag mounted remotely so that it doesn't get in the way of the tires whenever I go wider. Because eventually this thing's it's either getting a torque storm or a twin turbo, I'm not sure. So it's going to need room for more tire, and I don't want the airbag to be in the way. Anyway, well, that's the plan. So the next one for this thing will be the 7-way brake controller and finishing up getting that welded. I won't be able to get it off the truck once I get that stuff welded on without removing the bed, just because it won't be able to come off. So when I take the bed off to do the C-notch, that's when I'll pull it off and finish weld it a little better where I couldn't, where it's touching the frame and stuff, or the inside corner where there's a radius of the frame I can get a weld in there, but I'll get to that when I pull it off and paint it and put it back on. So that's pretty much it for this one.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.